Hey guys, I'm Aditya Thakur and welcome back to Newton School YouTube channel. In this video, we'll get started with conditional programming in Python. We'll look at how to use if-else statements in your Python program. And before we get started, a quick introduction to Newton School. It is a platform which prepares you for your career in tech. They have courses designed for freshers, for working professionals, and also for women with no tech background. Newton School would first train you for 6 months and help you become an amazing full stack developer. They have a network of more than 300 great companies. So after you complete the training, Newton School would ensure that the student gets placed with the best companies in the country. And the best part is you do not have to pay until you are placed. They have a pay after placement program. And quick introduction to Launchpad as well. Launchpad is an initiative taken by Newton School for people who want to start coding from scratch, and this is made available totally free of cost. This video would also be available in the Launchpad section of the Newton School. You can check it out there. So coming to the Python condition and if statements, we have already seen like Python supports the logical condition from mathematics. We can use the equals, the not equals, less than a is less than b, or less than equal to, greater than, and other such logical conditions in Python. These conditions can be used in a number of ways, but we mostly use it with the if statements. So we have seen if statements in the past, but today we'll take them up at length. So first things first, I'll go over to newtonschool.co. Here, if you do not have an account, you can quickly sign up. Since I already have one, I'll just log into my account. So this should take some time, but after I am logged in, I'll quickly go over to the my profile, and there I'll create a new playground where we'll write all the code. We'll go down to the playground, and here inside algorithm playground, you can open an existing one. I'll just create a new one quickly. That's how you do it. So it should open up to an editor where you have the option to write code, the take in input, and also you have your output and the error where it's shown. So since we have been working with Python, I will first select a compiler, which is Python 3.8.1. And now what I'll do is, since we have already seen some of like if statements, but today like we'll see it at length. We'll go over through the different basics. So let us say like there are two numbers, a is 16 and b is a bigger number, 20. So if you were to compare these two numbers, check which one is greater, how would you do that? You'll have to use one of the logical conditions, right? Equals, not equals, less than, or greater than. So how we normally do it, we use a if statement. So you will type in if a is less than b, then do something, right? Print, let us say yes, or anything. You can print it out to console. Like you want to check if a is less than b. A and b are two variables. We have assigned them to 16 and 20 respectively, but let's try running this program and check out if our first number, which is a, is less than b, and it prints out yes to console, which means that this is true. A is less than b, and that is why it is printing out yes to the console. And that is how like the if statements work. Basically, you have two numbers, a and b. You can use logical conditions on them by using an if statement. And what you'll notice is Python relies on indentation to define the scope. For example, in this particular line of code 2, we have the if keyword here, the condition that we want to check here, and then we use a colon, and we have to give it some indentation. There is some space from the starting. Why? Because Python relies on this indentation to define the scope. So all the statements that you want to execute if this condition is true would come after this indentation. So let us say like there was another statement, print this is in scope, right? I mean, this is the part which is identity, and there is also another statement which says this is outside, right? So if I'll normally run it as in if A is less than B, A is 16, B is 20, and now if I run this code, you will see like both the statements would get executed. It would print out yes, it would also print out this is in scope, and it would also print out the last statement, this is outside. But if there was a case where this number A was not less than B, then what would happen? Let's try running this program. And you'll notice like this part of the code was not executed because it isn't true. So these two statements are in the indentation, so they won't be executed as well. Only the outside statement which is present, outside of any if statements, that would be executed normally. So I can also close it like this, and you'll notice that this part of code isn't executed. So that is how indentation works. That is how if statement works. You have your if keyword and then the logical condition that you want. You can also check for equality. Let's try running this now. It would print out the same, but if it were 20, it should work fine. And yeah, so you can experiment with all the different logical conditions: equals, not equals, less than, greater than or equal. So that is how you will check like the different numbers and how are they logically, what are the different logical conditions you can try out with them. So you can use the if statements. Now, what if you wanted to define like multiple conditions, as in, okay, these numbers are equal, but you also want to check if one number is greater than or the other. So what you can do is, if you have to use multiple conditions, then you can use like the Python if else. So there are two keywords, one is ELIF and one is else. So the ELIF keyword is Python way of saying if previous. Let me just zoom in into the presentation. So the ELIF keyword is Python's way of saying if the previous condition were not true, like the if part of the code isn't true, then try this condition. Try to check if this condition is true, and if it's true, then print out certain lines of code. Otherwise, don't. And the else keyword is the keyword that catches anything which isn't caught in the preceding conditions, which means if they're like, if none of the above conditions are true and you want to do something anyway, like capture the edge cases or do something for the other cases, so you can use the else keyword. Let's check it out in code. Let us say like there are two numbers, A and B. We are using two variables. Now we want to check for different conditions. If A is greater than B, then we want to print out the greater number. If they are equal, then we want to print out they are equal. And if like there is the third case, that is if there are less than or if anything else happens, so we want to print out something else. So how would you do that is basically you will have the first condition which would be set to if A is greater than B, then I want to print line of code which would say ki if A is greater than B, the first number is greater, right? Now if you want to also add another condition, that is you also want to check if they are equal, so you can type in ELIF. So ELIF is the keyword. A is equal to B, then you can do certain things like print the numbers are equal. And last, what you can do is for all the other cases, you can just simply type in print none of the above conditions, or you can write like because we know in our head that if A is greater than A is greater than B is checked, and if for equality 2 we have checked, so the last condition would be like they are less. But you can use the else keyword like for none of the above conditions are true or anything like that. True, right? So that is how you do it. I'll get rid of this outside statement so you are better able to see the conditions being checked. So let us go for the first case, right, which is they are equal. So what will happen is the code would go something like this. It would first check if a is greater than b. Since it's false, this statement would not be printed. Then it would check if ELIF a is equal to b. Now this is true, so it would print out these statements, right? So it shows numbers are equal. Now if we increase the value, as in if we make a 25 and b 20, now if we run this program, so it would just print out the first number is greater, because it will come here, it will check and it will find that the first number is greater. If there was a case where a was 16, which is less than 20, so the code would check first a is greater than b. If it's equal, these both conditions aren't true, so it would just go over to the else part of the check and print out none of the above conditions are true, right? So this is how else if works in Python. Now I also want to check if there are certain numbers, let me also make one more condition. ELIF a is less than b, right? So I can print the second number is greater, right? Let me run this program. So it would print out the second number is greater, instead of going over to this else statement here that none of the conditions are true. So all right, that is how it works, right? So now instead of going over to the else part, it would just check the condition here and it find that the second number is greater, so it would just print it out. And that is about like the Python if else statements, how we use the ELIF keyword and how we also use else. Let's go over to the next slide, which is shorthand if and shorthand if else. So if you have only one statement to execute, you can put it on the same line as the if statement. That is, you can simply type in if a is greater than b, print a is greater than b. Simply you can, instead of doing the indentation part of it, you can simply write in a single line, right? That is how you do a shorthand if statement. If there is only one line of code you want to execute with the if statement, whatever I'll write after this would be considered a separate statement. It wouldn't be part of the if else. So right now if I run it now, a is not greater than b, so it would just print out the second statement, which is not part of the if else. Shorthand if, how do you write the shorthand if else, which is also very similar. You type in the first statement, that is print a if a is greater than b, else print b. So how we can do this is basically print a if a is greater than b, else print b, and that is about it. Let's try running it. So it prints out 20. Why? Because first we will go here, print a if a is greater than b. Since a is not greater than b, a is 16, b is 20, else print b. So it would just print out this b 20, which is the bigger number, right? So you can print out which of these is the bigger number by using this shorthand if else. And lastly we have the and or. So these were parts of the logical keywords. If you wanted to put in multiple checks, we have seen them when we were doing the logical operators in the previous video. You can go over that video once, but basically how you do this is, if there are like 3 numbers, let us say if there is c as well, 12, and you want to check like if a is greater than b, and also want to introduce another condition, so you can type in a is greater than c, and that is how you can use like the AND keyword to have multiple conditions in your if statement. Print A is greatest, right? If I run this now, it wouldn't work because A is not the greatest number. If instead I were to make it an OR, so it would work, because for OR to execute, only one condition needs to be true. That is, since A is greater than C, it would anyway print out the statement. But for AND to work, A should be like the greatest number of all the numbers. So if A were 26, it would work fine. And yeah, you can see like A is the greatest being printed out. So that is how they work. You can look over the logical operators video once to get clear idea of this, but you can use the AND keyword, which is a logical operator, and it is used to combine these conditional statements. So if A is greater than B and C is greater than A, you can combine the statements and print both conditions are true. And the OR keyword is also a logical operator. It is used to combine the conditional statements, but it works even if like one of the condition is true. So if A is greater than B, it will work. If A is greater than C, it will work. If both are true, then also it will work. So that is how OR works. Whereas AND, it needs both of these conditional statements to be true to work. So that is the basic difference. And that is all for this video, as in we covered the if else statements, how to use ELIF, how to use the else keyword, and we also saw how to write it in shorthand. Those shorthand ones are called ternary operators. And we also saw like the AND and OR keywords, which are used to combine the different conditional statements. I would recommend going over one of the previous videos in which we took them up at greater length. But that is it for videos. We'll keep using if else in number of programs that we'll do, so these ideas would get clearer as we go. So don't forget to subscribe the channel. If you are new here, hit the bell notification icon so you get notified each time we upload a video. And thank you so much for watching.